What was the most successful prank you've ever pulled? One summer when my cousin was staying with us, he and I had a small prank war going on against one another. We decided to put our talents together and try to prank everyone else. We put small piles of flour on each blade of the ceiling fan in the living room, just enough to not be seen from the ground. A few weeks went by and nothing happened, and we had forgotten about it. And then, the day finally came. My mom had company over. I was in the kitchen and I heard all kinds of shouting, screaming coming from the living room, monsieur. My cousin ran up to me grinning and said, "It's happening." The living room looked like it had just snowed inside. Everything was coated in a dusting of flour. My mother was screaming. Her guests were staring in confusion and the dogs were running around in circles. It was so amazing, until we had to clean it all up. My late husband was a weather nerd and loved inclement weather. One time I was home alone and a huge storm was imminent. I taped the weather warnings. A few days later it was a beautiful sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. We were watching TV and as soon as he walked into the kitchen to fetch a beer, I started playing the warnings. It was so funny. He kept running outside to check the sky. I laughed so hard, and so did he when I fessed up. For our high school senior prank at my boarding school, we snuck out in the middle of the night and stole the athletic director's prized golf cart. We pushed it up a hill to the school. One of our friends was able to get keys from a custodian and let us in a back door. We got the golf cart into the building and then into a science classroom and lifted it up onto the big lab tables. We decorated it with nonsense and left it there and locked everything up. In the morning, everyone not in on it was completely confused about how the hell we had pulled it off. We didn't even damage anything. Even the chain we had to cut to get the golf cart free was replaced with a note on our athletic director's doorstep. The custodial staff wasn't even mad at having to take the cart out because it was so ridiculous. I can only imagine the double take that the teacher did when he entered his class that day. When I was 13, I told my mom my alarm stopped working and asked her to wake me up in the morning. So I stayed up until she went to bed and snuck downstairs. I took a jar of Vaseline and put the Vaseline on my doorknob and went to sleep. The next morning my mom woke me up by screaming, "What the F asterisk asterisk asterisk. WHO does something like that." Quote, 1998 I was in 4th grade and got my hands on a universal remote watch. At the time it was super high-tech and nobody had heard of such a thing. I would sneakily turn the classroom TV on every 5 minutes. The teacher, who I despised, was convinced that ghosts were in the room as she unplugged it after the 3rd or 4th time. After seeing the movie Poltergeist, I thought it would be funny to put all the chairs up on the table stacked all weird and then open all the cabinets in the middle of the night. I thought it would be harmless and my parents would get a laugh out of it. Nope. They believed, 1000%, that it was a ghost we had in the house, and it didn't even matter that I told them the truth. They choose to believe it was the ghost. I'm not sure why, but I think they really wanted to be haunted or something. A successful but unsuccessful one. I saw a friend walking ahead of me, so did the old tap on the shoulder but run past on the other side maneuver. However, while concentrating on him I didn't see the park bench, ran into it at full speed, and collapsed behind it. Through the gaps in the seat I could see my friend looking left and right, almost freaking out, wondering who had tapped him in the shoulder. The tears from the pain in my leg kept me from laughing and giving myself away for about 20 seconds. I set up a fake email address for the Narwhal Appreciation Society and sent a coworker an email from the address saying, "We at the Narwhal Appreciation Society have been informed that you, too, have an affinity for this majestic creature and we wanted to see if you would like to join our society." He responded with, "Thanks for the email, not sure who referred me but I don't have any interest in joining your society. Good luck." Quote. A couple of weeks later, I emailed him again and listed off the membership dues for the society and upcoming events. He responded with, once again, "Please note that I am not interested. Please take me off your distribution list." A few weeks later, I emailed him a note that his membership dues were in arrears, commenting that the faithful narwhal would most assuredly pay its bills if it used currency. I emailed him roughly 2 to 3 by per year for 3 to 4 years. For the first year, when we still worked together, I'd see him open the email, shake his head and say aloud, "Not these fucking guys again." But he never attempted to block the email address. He responded to some, becoming increasingly agitated, and ignored others. In one response, he attached pictures of dead narwhals that had been killed by Inuit hunters and said, "This is what I think of your stupid narwhal. I hate them, monsieur. I wish them all dead." Quote, I eventually stopped and never mentioned to him that it was me, but years later, a few ex-coworkers were out for pints and one guy said to me, "Whatever happened with that narwhal shit you were doing?" And my pranked coworker's eyes bugged out of his head, "That was you." Quote, cooking at school. Different parts of the menu were prepared by different people. The girl tasked with the fruit salad was having grapes when I passed her, so I commented that she wasn't peeling them. "Monsieur, were we supposed to do that?" "Of course. Didn't you listen?" asked the teacher. Quote, a long time later, I had already forgotten the matter. Not expecting to be taken seriously, I heard our teacher yell, "Anita, what are you doing?" Poor girl was almost done peeling a pound of grapes. A buddy of mine from high school went by the nickname TD. One day, my brother asked me what TD stands for. So I look at him like he's an idiot and say, "Tyrone Draconis." Duh. This name came out of nowhere. I had no intentions before that moment of deceiving "Hi, monsieur," so I nonchalantly go back to whatever I was doing. Brother freaks out saying that's the best name ever and is so excited he can't wait to surprise TD with knowing his name at school tomorrow. Thing is, TD stands for Theodore David. I get to school about 30 minutes before my brother and start explaining to everyone the situation. And to go along with it, even TD is on board. So, from end of August until early mid-May, every time my brother sees TD in the halls he shouts, "Tyrone Draconis." At one point another classmate of mine tried to correct him, but she had a bad reputation with me, bullied me when we first moved there, so naturally he didn't believe her. Then came graduation day when my mom spoiled it. Yes, my parents were in on it, too. Brother didn't want to attend commencement, and as a bargaining tool she said, "Don't you want to hear TD's name announced?" Several times. After a couple hours of that, brother comes up to me and asks, "TD's name isn't really Tyrone Draconis, is it?" Quote, I proceed to blow his mind with this elaborate ruse that spawned from one spontaneous moment. Several months prior, edit, autocorrect ruined the first instance of the fake name. This is more serious now than it was a prank before. When me and my 3 other brothers were young, we hid from our dad when he came home from work. We never responded to him calling our names, nor made a peep. We thought we were the perfect little ninjas. Well, he decided to go to the neighbor's house to see if we were over there. But when he finds out we weren't, he calls my mother in distress saying we were all gone and nowhere to be found. My mom comes home crying and they're getting ready to call the police when we pop out from our hiding spots. They were not happy, lol. We all got the belt that day. So I went to a Catholic high school. I had a work-study, volunteer job in the office to help with tuition. Part of this job involved printing letters and stuffing envelopes to parents and alumni. Fast forward to spring break time, senior year. I get my hands on some of the stationery and envelopes and type up a letter to parents informing them that after careful consideration, the school has decided to place the health of its students above the arcane regulations against the use of condoms. Thus, the school was going to be providing protection at the junior and senior proms. I typed this up at home and hit a Kinko's, but only had enough for about half the senior class to get a letter. So I just mail merged every other student, stuffed the letters, and dropped them in the outgoing mail basket. My next shift. Skip forward 3 days and shit hits the fan. Lots of kids are talking about this. The school is inundated with half super pissed conservative Catholic parents and half backpatters saying it's about time. The school sends out a letter to all parents telling them to disregard the previous communication, in that the letter was not an official communication. Skip forward another 3 days and even more parents start calling and writing asking what the school is talking about. They never got a letter. So, in a final letter, the school gets a copy of the original letter and includes it in a mailing to the entire student body with a second letter explaining that this wasn't official and that they will not be providing condoms at the dance. Y'all are the first people I've ever told. Edit. Holy Mary's dental dam. Thank you for the awards. I'm glad y'all appreciated this. I bought $100 worth of Pepsi cans and hid them around my roommate's room. Monsieur, he moved out in August and he's still finding them. Monsieur. In my senior year in high school, there were 3 of us who took satellite language courses. 2 of us were taking Japanese, while the 3rd student took a German course that aired after the Japanese one. It was proctored in-house by one of the gym teachers, and because we were generally good and smart kids, he left us to our own devices. This mostly meant that we flirted mercilessly with each other while ignoring the teacher who couldn't hear or see us on the TV. Early on, the young lady who took German mentioned that she liked buying and wearing men's jeans rather than women's, for whatever reason, and also mentioned that she wore a 30 waist. I was a 34 at the time. But every so often, maybe every other week, I would bring up that I could fit in what she wore. She'd say there was no way, but I would mention that I'd have to suck in my gut, and I wouldn't be comfortable, but I could do it for a minute or so, just long enough to prove I was right, which is honestly the most important part. Finally, after a few months of this, she very sternly tells me that she's tired of hearing my baseless claims, and that I should cease making them. Monsieur, this led to me very sadly asking if she was telling me there was no way that I was ever going to get in her pants. The very bright red she turned at realizing that this had been a several-month setup for a very stupid joke was worth everything to me. My friends and I rearranged my college roommate's room and covered absolutely everything in tinfoil. He was just getting back from a trip and rolled in with his suitcase. He is overly dramatic and thus a great victim. Monsieur, we were watching TV when he goes to his room, and I hear, "Oh my good." He huffs out and says the most dad comment ever. Why would you do this? If this isn't cleaned up by the time I get back from work. He goes to work. We tinfoiled his suitcase. In the army the duties rotated. When it was my turn to clean the toilets, I had prepared some chocolate pudding. I scrubbed the toilet seats exceptionally clean, then left a thin but clearly visible brown line of the pudding on one of the seats. During inspection, the lieutenant saw it and yelled for the person responsible for the bathroom that day. I raised my hand and followed him into the stall with the dirty seat. "What's this?" he said. I dipped my finger in the pudding, smelled it, then slowly licked my finger as if I was tasting it, and said, "It's poo, but I don't know whose." This is where I usually stop when I tell this story. The lieutenant was a hilarious guy. After a few intense seconds he cracked up and started laughing, then simply told me to clean it in case his commanding officer would drop by. I had heard about this prank somewhere before, but I can't remember from where. But at least I did it myself. Grinning face with smiling eyes. Told my sister that orange soda tastes better the more you shake it before opening. Beaming face with smiling eyes. I dunno if this counts as a prank, but my dad is a huge fan of the series Scrubs. And there's a gag where a character puts a pancake in the silverware drawer and this exchange happens. Why is there a pancake in the silverware drawer? Quote, you mean why is there silverware in the pancake drawer? So, just for laughs, I made pancakes and put one in our silverware drawer, waiting idly by in the kitchen for him to need a fork or something. I watch all giddy as he, confused, takes the pancake out and asks, what's a pancake doing in the silverware drawer? Quote, without missing a beat, I say, you mean what is silverware doing in the pancake drawer? Quote, I didn't think it would actually work. He got a real kick out of that. I've been waiting to tell this story for a decade on Reddit, as it was the highlight of my high school years. In #X200B, I managed to convince my sister's ninth grade science teacher she was an amateur arsonist almost by accident. In #X200B, I had a study hall with Mr. D the semester before, and one day as I'm sitting in the class near the back he wanders by and says, I have your sister in my class next semester. Anything I should know? Just trying to make conversation with a student whose younger sibling was newly ninth grade. In #X200B, I don't know where it came from, but I jokingly told him, look, whatever you heard, it was completely blown out of proportion. No charges were ever filed. And besides, there haven't been any incidents in a couple of months. And besides some smoke damage, there's been no loss of property. Maybe just don't sit or near the waste paper just to be safe. Just pulling Mr. D's leg basically. In #X200B, I forgot about that exchange until the parent-teacher night the next semester, when my mother came back and asked me what I told my sister's science teacher. Apparently I played the defensive older brother act a little too well, and he spent the first 3 weeks of that semester with my sister under close scrutiny, and he had to ask my mom about the validity of my claims. In #X200B, I only found out this past holiday when I was retelling the story. But my sister inadvertently helped the joke along that first week she was in science. They were lighting Bunsen burners and Mr. D asked if anyone knew how to use matches. Given we grew up with wood heat and camping, it should come as no surprise that my sister's hand shot up. You remember the juicy fruit gum sticks? The ones with the wrapper? I would carefully open the gum and save the wrapper. Then I would carve a piece of soap to look like the gum, rewrap it and give it to my sister. The kicker was that after she first put the gum in her mouth and discovered it was soap, I'd laugh and then offer her a real stick of gum as an apology. That second stick was also soap. She fell for it.